conscious kink for me, the much more important piece is about the quality of the connection, the quality of the interaction, the quality of the presence with the person that I'm in a place of play with.
Welcome to Bear Lifestyle, the podcast where we talk about taboo topics to make them normal and acceptable. I'm your host, Simona Spark, and I am so excited that you are here. We are about to get naked by stripping away insecurities, judgments, and all kinds of limitations to reveal the essence of who we really are there. Bold, authentic, radical, and fully expressed. Let's begin. Cheer, cheer. So that's how we start.
No.
I'm cheering with ginger tea. What are you drinking? Water?
Water.
All right,
Water.
let's cheers and let's
Think.
I always celebrate myself for being here and celebrating my guests and celebrating everyone who listen and watches to this. So cheers, cheers, everybody.
Perfect. Celebrating that. Mm.
Well,
Thank you for having me. It's to be
thank you
here.
for being here. I'm very excited to have this conversation because little that I learn about you just through social media, and little thing that you share with me, it appears to me that we are doing a lot of similar work.
Mhm.
And my audience here that I built for the past 3 years, probably, I mean, most likely they hear me saying the same things over and over again. And the
Mhm.
whole point of bringing a guest on this platform is to offer to this beautiful audience a different perspective than mine. That's how we get to expand, right?
Beautiful.
So I'm focusing in my work in bringing kinks and BDSM practices in healing sexual trauma, healing insecurities, getting in contact with our own body and connecting with others. And I
Mm.
know that big part of your work is that as well. So can we just dive deep into that, how kink and BDSM practices help us become better for
Mhm.
ourselves and for others?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump in. Let's go deep.
What's the secret? How do we do it?
What's the secret? Well, I think a good way to start would be something that's important for me around the distinction between kink and BDSM as many people might perceive it, and what I like to think of as conscious kink. Like conscious kink was my introduction to this world and was such an important thing because I think for a lot of people when they play with kink and BDSM, it can often be about the activity. It can often be about, okay, there's impact play. I want to experience some kind of physical sensation, or it's the kind of thing which is great for hobbyists. And by that I mean any hobby where there's lots of gear and tech and tools and things to like get really nerdy about and spend money on.
Mhm.
Conscious kink for me includes all of those other things, but the much more important piece is about the quality of the connection, the quality of the interaction, the quality of the presence with the person that I'm in a place of play with. Because then it's like really being able to feel at a whole other level. Because I think in a lot of kink play, it's possible to do the performance of kink without the connection. And I think there can be, for some people, there can be dissociation in that. It's more about what it looks like uh,
Mhm.
and the kind of the messages we might be giving or showing for other people or the community.
Yeah.
For me, my experience of conscious kink was just how present can I be with my partner, which changes
Mhm.
everything.
100%. I mean, if we step back from the whole topic, just the idea of being present changes everything in any area in our life. It's one thing
Right.
to just rush through food watching a show, which I sometimes do. And it's another thing with just sitting with my meal and really savor it and taking it in, right? So I love how you emphasize the conscious kink, the presence, the connection, the being present with the other person. I also see in my own experience, but also with clients, taking this, oh, this is interesting and exciting. Let me play with this kink. Let me bring that BDSM practice, which is great, is fantastic. I appreciate people having an open mind. But as you say, those are activities and tools.
Yeah.
And what I help my clients with is to identify who are they when they are playing with this activity and tool. So it's a work of identity,
Mm-hmm.
not dissociated. Like I'm just gonna be here, I don't know, vanilla. I hate that term, but everybody understand. And I'm gonna be here. I'm actually vanilla and shy and
Mm-hmm.
prune and all those things, but I'm just gonna make believe that I like this thing. It's not gonna freaking work,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is your approach in leading a person, leading a client from, whatever past experiences, insecurities, sexual trauma, and such, lead him in through how open the door for them to, hey, there is a space here,
Mm-hmm.
and we could use those tools to help you go in
Yeah.
and heal, right?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Oof.
And I know we could talk 17 hours about that alone.
For
It's a whole
sure.
process, but we just want to
Oh,
scratch the
okay.
surface to open
Yeah.
people's mind, like, hey, there is other ways to do this healing work through pleasure, as I most advocate. We get to heal through pleasure, not through pain.
Yeah.
Unless we choose pain, that's a separate thing.
Well, that is like I can really get into this whole idea of pleasure as a portal to healing. Pain
Mhm,
can also be a portal to healing.
mhm,
I think in trying to answer your question from my perspective, one of the beautiful things about kink play is that it kind of invites in almost from the very beginning a question of choice. What is it that I'm choosing to experience? What is the role that I want to play? What is the facet of my character that I might want to understand in a different way? So, at one level, we can talk about scenes and role playing, and it can sound very flippant, but actually, it can be incredibly meaningful to really articulate and craft what a role, what a scene is going to look like. What aspects of our personality and character might we be wanting to experience? And that can absolutely be about pleasure. Like there's something about the interaction or the interface between pleasure and our nervous system, like being able to surrender into a place through pleasure where we can really receive and where our minds can start to set new neural pathways, new neural connections to understand experiences differently. But it also works with pain. So, for example, I know people who enjoy impact play, enjoy spanking, but to the point where there are significant bruises. And
mhm.
it's not about pleasure. For that person, as an example, it could be about experiencing themselves as someone that can overcome, so that they might experience in their lives being like small and collapsed. But in an experience of kink, it's like, I can survive this. And then it's a whole aspect of their personality, their character that gets an opportunity in that space of the scene to really come forward and be experienced. It's a
Yeah,
really beautiful process.
very powerful.
Yeah.
And it's an empowering choice, as you said. Like I start with deciding what is it that I'm interested in, what is it
Yeah.
that my thoughts, my body, my desires are calling me into, and then actually it's a very personal self-discovery journey into making all this increments decision of who I want to be, who, like a month ago, I just launched an introductory course in BDSM, like how play, power, pleasure, how to create a BDSM scene. And now I'm getting the feedbacks from people that purchased this course, right? And apparently the expectation was like, oh, we're just gonna go. These are the toys and these are the thing. And it's far from
Yeah.
how I teach it. I teach it. It's a lot of like self-discovery. Like, yeah, those are the things, those are the elements, those are the roles. But like really asking the question to identify who you want to be, who you are, what it's matching, what it's trigger you, what are the spaces that is more aligned with who you are today that could help you actually touch on that trauma, on that pain, and hold it powerfully with somebody that you trust and connected, and release it.
Yeah.
Regardless if it's through a silk rope or to a spanking paddle, it's like you get to enjoy it and you get to release it. And yes, in
Mhm.
the end, they build the scene, but it's not like I'm just gonna build it because that's how I saw on TV and that what is done. Like, no, forget about that and really
Yeah.
take a moment and discover what is your scene, what is your role, what is
Mm.
that you need, who
Mhm.
is your matching partner into this
Yeah.
scene, right? I think that
Just
is,
what something that was coming up for me was just this piece around the kind of the ritual and like the sacredness of kink play.
yes,
Kind of what you're saying in a different way is it's not about what it looks like. It's can we go one or two rungs down on the ladder to understand what is really the intention behind this moment? What is
yeah,
the intention that we have behind this interaction? And that ability or the possibility of being able to transmute our traumas in a way where the power dynamics are explicit and understood, where we can be the ones that are in that place of power in terms of being fully in consent with what's happening, as opposed to the place of trauma, which would have been by its nature disempowering. Like
yes.
the way that can change things and can change things so quickly is simply extraordinary.
Yeah, it really is. It just come up for me. I heard it somebody or hear it somewhere or read it somewhere. Oh God, did I lost it? No, it's I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the exact words.
Uh,
The difference between pain and pleasure is consent.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
The difference between pain and pleasure, it's consent. Once
mm,
upon a time, when men abused me, raped me, did
mm.
things to me, I didn't have a choice. So it was very, very painful.
Yeah.
Traumatizing in my body for decades, that trauma ran my life.
Mm,
After deep healing and all the things and therapy and coaching and all the things, getting into a BDSM scene that once upon a time I thought, oh, that's just so aggressive and violent and what's wrong with these people? It was my judgment, as it's so
mm,
many, right? Now to get into a space and to say, wait a minute, actually, now I'm asking for this. I consent to this.
mm,
And not only that it's pleasurable and powerful, but it really helps to release some
mm.
things that I could not release on a therapist chair.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
there is no, for me, up until this point in my life, there is no other space that you could be more open and more vulnerable
Yeah,
than in that space.
yeah.
And what I know to be true is like when you open and vulnerable with a trusted partner or partners, whatever the setting is, then and only then you could actually create change. You could create healing.
Mm-hmm.
Up until that, I could read thousands of books and it's
Yes,
all
it's
here.
brilliant. Yeah, yeah.
But the
It
trauma is in a
is
body.
body. Yeah.
So I'm just curious because you mentioned this a power dynamic, and I know you have experience with dominant, submissive, and power dynamic play. How would you present this dynamic as an invitation to people to try it on? And I'm talking about people that might be interested in BDSM practices, might even have some clue about it, but there is still a lot of resistance. How would you
Okay.
present it to make it
Again,
inviting and
brilliant.
delicious
Yeah, yeah. Again,
as
brilliant,
it is?
brilliant question. I, and in answering that, I want to just follow on from what you were saying earlier, because I teach a workshop called Embodied Consent. And in that workshop, I talk about, for me, consent equals connection. The,
Mm,
the two become almost indivisible. And there's a really powerful phrase from when I did my training in compassionate inquiry with Gabor Mate, where Gabor Mate talks about definition of safety. And he speaks about safety is not the absence of threat, it is the presence of connection. And I think for me, I
Ooh,
know, right?
so good.
It's the presence of connection. So as long as the connection is there, it doesn't matter in a way what you're doing, because at no point will there be in an ideal world, at no point do we find ourselves in a place where we are genuinely afraid,
Mm,
where we are fearful for our safety. It simply doesn't happen. It keeps us in power dynamics, in role play, in the world of kink. If the connection is there, that keeps us in the space where we are playing with power, where we are playing with submission, where we are playing with dominance, as
yes,
long
yes.
as the connection is maintained. And
Is it safe to assume that when you say connection, like the trust that's already embedded in there? Not
oh,
to take you off
yeah,
track,
yeah, yeah.
but
No, no, but it's really important. So, like, I find that a lot of people assume trust rather than build trust.
okay.
So that people can come into relationships, can come into scenes with an expectation that I trust you, and then at some point that trust is in some way shaken.
Mm,
When it comes
mm,
to
interesting.
physical intimacy, for me, there's something about the speed with which we can drop into the connection, and that is about safety and it is about trust. So the way I like to play is I play also with something called radical slowness. Like
Mm.
how slowly can we begin our intimacy? How slowly can we begin our physical connection so that the trust builds up really quickly within our bodies? It's this kind of paradox that the slower we can go, the faster we can get to where we want to.
I absolutely believe in that, and especially in this, vulnerable space where we have to remember that we basically engaging our whole nervous system so we can self-traumatize or shock it.
Mm.
So the way to do it is like gentle, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I I'm a big fan for slow and gentle and just ease into it. So I know that every single part of me,
Mhm.
including the one they're super excited and eager, they cannot wait, and included with little parts, they're like, I'm not sure about this. Maybe I'm a little bit afraid because they're all there, more or less. Mm,
So I often think about like when we're in connection with each other, it's almost like magnetic waves that keep us in some way connected. So that one person might move a little bit and the other person is moving too. But when we're in a situation where one person just like wants to get to the action, whether it's like I just want to get to getting the flogger out or spanking or in sex, it's like I just want to get to penis and vagina, whatever it might be. Like
right.
one person has left the other behind, and that connection is lost immediately.
And the safety is just destroyed
Exactly. Exactly.
100%.
It's about
So
building a level of emotional attunement to each other, like at an almost energetic level.
yeah, yeah, I think for sure at energetic level. Whew,
Mm.
so good. Oh my God, I have 17 questions in here, but let's continue and see how we take this into the invitation of open our mind to step into those roles of dominant and submissive and understanding the power
Hmm.
that it's built in there because it's like
Hmm.
such a transfer of power. I'm just very curious on your perspective on this.
Mm. Um, so I identify as a daddy. I
Mhm,
identify as a loving dominant.
mhm,
And so that really informs very much the way that I see the spaces that I create and the spaces that I play in. And I have been a switch. I do switch. I think it's really important to know and understand the other side of that
mhm,
equation. Um, but there's something around like being able to create the clarity of the container within which somebody can surrender.
mhm,
And I've made I can be I'm neurodivergent, so sometimes I have to refer to notes because sometimes suddenly my brain goes blank,
I hear you. I'm right there with you.
right? I got this wonderful, like a definition of love is how I think of it by David Rico, who wrote a book called Daring to Trust, opening ourselves to real love and intimacy. And he identifies these things that he refers to as the five A's. There's attention, so attending to or giving our full presence and awareness to someone.
Mhm.
There's acceptance, being totally accepted with love, respect, and understanding.
Mm,
There's appreciation, an expression of being seen and valued. Affection, which is the energy and feeling of love. And there's allowing you to be who you are with no expectations or demands.
mm,
So, as a loving dominant, when I can create a space where these five A's become a kind of felt experience for the person I'm playing with, it allows them to shift and drop into that place of total surrender.
mm,
If they feel from me that I completely accept them for how they are in that moment, they experience that I'm truly allowing them to be their truest, most authentic selves. That permission allows them to drop into surrender to another deeper level. That's not how I think some people play with power and submission, but it's how I like to play with them. That's that holding, like I'm holding the other person, and the other person is just they're just lost in the experience.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I could speak from the other role because for longest time I identify myself as a dominant figure,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, oh, let me switch. Oh, this is fun. And for the for the purpose of like I need to understand what my partner is so I know how to do my job better, right? Until the point when I actually met a daddy
Mm,
that created a safe space that allowed me to fully surrender. And I love that you use the word surrender because I feel that at this point, the submission has too much negativity attached to it,
mhm.
as if it's obligated or I'm powerless. I'm like, girl, you're not. Um, but when you say surrender, it's such a more empowering word. Like I choose to, because you created the space where I'm feeling safe to do so. So maybe we need to change all this definition at some point to upgrade them to a more like, and I know I keep saying it over and over again, but goes beyond sexuality and goes beyond just having sex. It's that deep connection. It's a spiritual experience.
Mm,
So we actually like in my life, I get to choose. Like I don't submit, I surrender
yeah,
because that feels more aligned with the experience that I'm having and with my identity.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's such a core part of being a human being to feel that we are at choice, to feel that we are sovereign, we are doing what we choose to do in this moment.
Mhm,
Anything else is really not being fully alive. Anything else is responding to someone else's needs or someone else's expectations.
mhm,
That's
mhm.
really not living. It's really not living.
Totally not. I just looking for the day when we could. Okay, so I feel from where I'm at in my life, like I am doing my work to bring us more people into this space, just to because it's such a infinite space of exploration, right? And expansion. And then looking for ways in which we could take everything that we learn in this sacred space, as you name
Mm,
it, sacred, and that resonates with me 100%, and apply it to other areas in our life.
mhm.
Like, how does your life look like? Not necessarily you, but you who listen and watches this. If if you could take yourself with all the feelings and vulnerability and openness and love and affection and attention and appreciation and acceptance, all the A's that you lined up into into your work field, into a dinner with some friends, into
Mm,
right. I mean, they're all intimate moment. And
mm,
as said before, like intimacy is not just having sex, that's just one part of way of being intimate. But these are intimate moments, like when you sit down in a conversation with a best friend that is going through struggle, to just tap into like holding them, allowing them to surrender into their pain, and you hold them
yeah.
with affection and attention and care,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mm.
that's what I want to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah, I love that. Love that. I'm like celebrating you for that.
Thank you.
It's like what you're describing is just it's so important. Like we're taught the way that we are brought up these days in our kind of more Western culture is this idea of fixing things.
Hmm.
We've so lost the art of simply being able to hold each other's emotions, to validate each other. We're taught from such a young age that to have feelings, to have emotions is wrong. We're
Yeah.
taught from such a young age to squash ourselves and make ourselves into the mold of what society wants us to be and how society wants us to behave.
Hmm.
And so, in so many of our day-to-day interactions, even like really intimate ones with lovers and partners and friends, we jump to this kind of, how can I fix this? How can I support you to get back into this like shape that you should be?
Hmm.
And I'm really enjoying this kind of moment of unraveling, of being in a space which is much more about kind of coming from curiosity in any conversation. Like, I'm curious, who are you? What is your authentic response in this moment? What are you feeling? What emotions are present for you? And just
Yes.
being able to honor each other in that way, to allow
Yes.
ourselves to like expand and be more of ourselves, not smaller, reduced versions of ourselves.
Yes, 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 totally. Like what I'm hearing is we actually get to ask more nurturing, loving, and expansive questions instead of
Mm.
what's wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of what's wrong, automatically put that person into a even if it's not conscious, there's some conscious is like, oh, something wrong. I need to be fixed.
Mm.
There is a problem. To say, hey, what's as you say, what's going on? What are you feeling? What is it that
Mm.
you need? What will make you feel
Mm.
better? Like
Mm.
there's so many other more powerful questions that we could ask to hold each other. And seriously, in like in BDSM scene, whatever scenarios, these are the questions there.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is the language.
yeah.
There is there is no what's wrong, or it's consent, it's checking in, it's
Mm. Mm.
affection, it's expansion, it's holding the aftercare. I cannot emphasize enough the aftercare,
Yeah.
that it's, if not more, equally important and powerful as the whole scene, when you actually get to just drop into releasing what is it to be released, and it's going just deeper, acknowledging how deeper you went
Mm.
with the partner, in a healing, in pleasure, in connection, like just,
Mm.
and so many layers, and most of them you couldn't even have planned them. You just come out of it and it's like, holy mother,
Yep.
what just happened, right? And of course you wake up in the morning and like who am I today?
Mm.
Because that is the most fast way of changing ourselves that I am aware of. And not only change, I mean, I've been doing coaching for 6 years. Like you coach, you switch, you do things, and you uncover, you shift mindsets, all the things in a session, but then it require integration. And I feel that when into a well organized and well conducted scene, actually you do the shift, the change, the healing, the release, and the integration in the same time. You literally come out of it as a new person. What's your perspective on all that?
Like I'm really resonating with what you're describing there. It's like it's back to like this idea of a ritual or a spiritual experience, or you know, from a personal perspective, one of the most transformative experiences of my life was in a fire ritual, which completely changed my experience of myself and my understanding of what power feels like as an embodied experience. And there's something really important here that I feel does need to be named. Like I've I've really enjoyed your podcast. Now, there was one where you're talking about patriarchy, and that feels
Yes.
really important to name here, like the relationship between patriarchy and power and dominance, or what we might think of as
Hmm.
dominance, and how for many people the dominant somehow becomes equated with masculine qualities of some kind. But what
Hmm.
you were describing there just now really resonates with me, and what you described in that podcast too, that for many men, absolutely, I include myself in this, my socialization meant that I grew up feeling less. I was taught to cut away my empathy. I was taught to not be so sensitive.
Hmm.
I effectively grew up to be less of a human being. And this process is teaching me to feel more. It's teaching me to reclaim that sensitive part of myself so that I become like a more of a human being. And that is such an important part of being able to engage in these kinds of play. Because for this transformative experience to happen that you're describing, it requires that we bring the most of ourselves, our fullest selves, our most feeling, most spiritual, most present selves to those interactions. So yeah, it feels important to name that people who step into that dominant role kind of question what dominance means for them, and to recreate or create their own definitions of something that feels true and aligned in a really embodied way.
Yes, absolutely. So beautiful. Thank you for sharing that because, as I said in that podcast, uh, I'm just tired of just blaming on patriarchy and see how much affect women and not many talk about how much affect men. And for me, in the end of the day, I go to sleep with the man. So I need to make sure that he has a space to connect, to release, to heal. So he could hold me better and such, right? So, oh man, I mean, to all you said, like, yes, find your role and what the dominance means to you and find who you are. Are you the master? Are you the daddy? Are you like so many things? Invent one if doesn't exist, if that's what you need. Who cares? It's all about authenticity and alignment with what's in your heart, right? In your soul. And also, uh, unfortunately, we still need to pay attention to how many predators are hiding under the dom's mask. Because I've been in dating scene for a few years and I like to talk. Date number one, people here are tired of me saying that. Date number one, I like to talk about what kind of lover you are. Where are you? What is your relationship with kings, with BDSM practice? Very important to me. So I want to make sure that I'm talking with the person that I could play in the spaces with, right? And not once and not twice, I met doms, and like this is how it's done. It's like it's very it's very predator approach, and it's like, well, maybe you need to read up on what that is because that's not what that is.
Yeah, yeah. But
Or like, all this dynamics like master slave and all. It's like, wait a minute, those are the labels, but then you have to look what's in it. And for me, it doesn't matter what the dynamic is.
mm,
All of them, what they have in common is the things that we are talking about: the connection, the trust, the safety. The I love the A's. You all, what are the A's? Let's recap. acceptance, appreciation, affection,
Attention,
attention, and what was it?
allowing.
Allowing.
Yeah.
How beautiful. How
Yeah.
beautiful. Whew.
Oof.
All right. All right. Well, I think it goes without saying that I'm going to have you back so we could dive into a different direction. So let's just wrap this up for today. And I want to invite you to close us with what you feel called to invite or suggest or advise or anything.
Hmm. Um, I think maybe just drawing on your earlier question around how kink play can expand into other areas of our lives. Just something around increasing our sensitivity to power dynamics. Like so that the invitation to just notice whether it's like really small, like just talking to someone in the shop and noticing how just the change of a raised eyebrow can change the tone of a conversation in like really subtle ways. Or at the other end, at the other scale, like just noticing where choice is and sovereignty in systems and political systems and who has choice and how power and submission plays out in the systems that we live with. I think you named it really beautifully how kink play has its mirrors in so much of our day-to-day lives.
How beautiful. Yes, I do believe that we all kinky, is just not all of us get in touch with those parts. And sometimes we could, I like that you pointed out, sometimes we could see them how they behave and probably they're not aware. Or they don't have the name for it, but they're definitely behaving from the true, authentic part of being a submissive or a dominant or kinky in this way and in that way. It's delicious. Delicious is the word that came for this
Mm.
episode, apparently. Oh my goodness. Okay, everyone. Please open the show notes. Make sure that you click on all the links and connect with this wonderful man that we have here today. If you resonate with his voice, beautiful voice, by the way, or perspectives and such. And other than that, we will see you next time in the same place. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you and your work.
Thank you for having me. It's been a delight.
And this is where we landed. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you are feeling inspired, empowered, and just a little bit more bare. If you enjoy the show, make sure to leave a review to let me know. For more bare experiences, go to simonaspark.com/bare and follow us on Instagram at Simona Spark World. I can't wait to have you back. Until then, be bare, bold, authentic, radical, expressed. See you next time.